family move in and bring in a Walmart, which then means I didn't go to Walmart out of choice. I went there because they've got out of all the competition. The only other competition for Walmart is other big box, large format, huge corporations. The only people that compete are there. So we've already taken out small business. We can get good quality service, good customer service. And then you come in there and you go, well, everything's cheap. So they must be very profitable. Everyone must be paid well. It must be a great experience. No, there's no restrictions on the trade. The Walton family's extracting, I'm going to sound like a leftist to everyone here, but look, you
already do.
I will say, yeah, it's fine. But
This is Elijah Schaefer on with Brad Palumbo and Tim Pool. This is a heck of a kind of cast of characters to get together. A lot of ideologies represented. Elijah Schaefer actually is somewhat has left positions. So do I. But I didn't know that until I started watching him on his slightly offensive, and you'll see. And he has good positions on the left. Tim Pool. And we're not going to talk about that country on this one. This is country here on American culture, economics. Let's get into it on the Tim Pool culture war.
I believe in nationalism and protectionism on our own economy in this way. Then you go in and you go, well, what's going on here? So they're taking billions, tens of billions of dollars out a year, maybe 100 billion, to import cheaper products that they're selling at a marked up price at a point to where there's nowhere else to buy it in a living condition and standards to their employees that are only allowing a Haitian immigrant to be someone who could possibly think about taking that job while he lives with 6 people in his apartment. That to me is disgusting. And that's the problem with all of the free trade is it's been taken advantage of. Massive billionaires have I don't know if we say the R word, but have RAP, us and our economy. And I feel like, for a lot of people that are capitalists or whatever the hell this is, you cannot have capitalism without a nationalist or a national protection-minded society.
Nothing you just said is disgusting.
Bars. Yes. A finish. I don't think I gotta get my finishing back up. Let's get back to it. Tim Pool. Elijah Schaefer is so good. Let's get back to this. Is Brad Palumbo here.
Let me address this. So outside of the whole Walmart scenario, in 1950, it took approximately 4,637 hours of labor on average for the average American worker to own a home. As of 2024, it's 15,142. I don't think Gen Z is particularly buying the argument that they've been raised out of poverty. Things have gotten better. I think Gen Z is actually livid over the conditions that they've been left by these policies.
Would you want to live in a 1950s home?
Yeah, why not?
Do you know the difference in the standards of what things
what is it?
like?
What are the standards?
You're not talking about the home. You're talking about the appliances.
Hold on. What standards? What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, I am talking about the appliances. I'm talking about the kitchen in a 1950s.
You're talking about government. You want government regulations on all of how the house should be built and all that stuff?
No, I'm saying.
What's on with the 1950s home?
I'm saying that the homes that people live in today are vastly superior in too many ways to count.
Like how?
Made out of cardboard instead of wood.
Come on. Honest question. Like how?
Think of all the kitchen appliances.
Like what?
Think of the air conditioning.
Like
the stoves. The
had stoves in the
microwaves.
1950s. They had microwave. They didn't have.
Yeah, I know. I'm just jumping in. I don't know what Tim's kind of amped up. I didn't think this would be the trigger. This is my first time watching this, but we'll continue on. Tim Pool he's about to wild out on Brad Palumbo.
Microwaves back then, but they had stoves. I'm not super concerned about a microwave.
The heating systems.
Like what? What is that? What is that heating system?
I'm not an expert in heating.
And why make the argument?
Because it's true.
They had stoves, they had fridges, they had dishwashers back then.
So why don't you go to a museum where
Is this about the Make America Great Again? I don't know where this is going. Like I agree with Tim, but I just don't understand the intensity.
they have this set up, what the typical home was like in 1955. Walk around and ask yourself if you'd rather live in that home than the home that you presumably live in or most Americans live in today. You might. I mean, that's up to you. I think
you're asking, ask a 24-year-old, ask a 24-year-old, would you like to have your own home right now with a 1950s stove, a 1950s refrigerator, and a 1950s dishwasher, or would you like to live in a bachelor apartment?
Hold on.
Yeah, well, now I see why Tim's amped up. Did I miss that before? I don't know, but I finally get it. He's right. Is Brad going to argue against that? I hope not. That's going to really trigger Tim. I used to watch Tim all the time, so I can tell when he's amped up. Brad, be careful. What is going on here?
Whole framing is incorrect. Housing is not unaffordable today because of free trade. It's because governments across this country have made it impossible to build housing. That's why we have a housing shortage and housing is so expensive. And in fact, the kind of protectionist policies you're talking about would make housing more expensive. You put tariffs on the imports that go into building homes, you're only making it even more expensive.
Why can't they make money?
Why can't
Gen Z make money?
There's a million reasons for that. Our government has screwed up our economy beyond
I mean,
control.
maybe they can get a job like their parents and work at a steel mill, maybe. What do you think, Elijah? Can they get a job at a steel mill?
Well, can we
No,
talk about...
you know, that's, by the way, that's why Gen Z is both the laziest and hardest working, is because there are no traditional paths towards wealth. There's no like, hey, just get this job and then you will have.
Here's my problem with Brad Palumbo, man, and him and his girl, they're not, obviously not his girl. Let's be clear. He doesn't have any girls. Let's just say that. But the girl that I don't know if they still do. I haven't really followed them a lot, but I forgot her name even. It's him and it was this woman, Hannah. They play the role, and I think this might be what's triggering Tim too. They purport themselves to be libertarians, and they try too hard to be libertarians, if that makes sense. It's almost like he's on the show and he has to try to be what he thinks the libertarian take is without fully just understanding the position or just having a natural conversation. I'm not always liberty focused or MAGA focused or left focused. It just depends on the conversation. And I don't even know what the focus is sometimes. It's just, I think this is the right answer. I think that's triggering Tim. Elijah is the complete opposite of Brad Palumbo. Elijah does not care. He just goes straight to, this is the right answer. Tim has more of that in him too. So I think that's why they're clashing. Let's get back to Tim Pool. That was a nice little Magic Johnson no-look pass from Tim to Elijah there, so he didn't dominate the conversation.
Have a home, they have to be genius, and with that comes pioneering new avenues. And I'll tell you, I hire some Gen Z people. One of them carries his laptop around by the screen. It scares me.
Elijah, sorry, can we stay on...
But I'm saying he's a genius and he'll do well in life. But I'm going to say the current old paths that people had towards wealth do not exist, and we understand that's because of policies and choices and the movement of understanding.
It's not because of free trade.
Yeah, I'm very upset about what we've allowed in our country, where we've pushed so many people to the gig economy. You know, when we talk about fans only, you know, for example, like there's so many women going to fans only because they don't care about men. They don't care about having kids. They don't care about what the future holds. That's a short-term thinking. Like I'm watching Sneeko. He's talking about that a lot. That's impulse thinking. I can go to fans only and maybe I'll make some money. Well, then also you got Uber and, you know, the different gig services like the Uber Eats and all these and Turo, and these are all gig economy where you just make somewhat of a buck. You don't have any health care or benefits attached to these. To my knowledge, they still haven't done it. Maybe in California, I don't know if they have. It's pushing everybody to these jobs that are easily replaced by the immigrants or whoever else. I think that's kind of where Elijah's going with this too. And that's setting up an economy where you can't buy a house if you're working on Uber as a second job, or definitely not as a first job.
If you want,
but can we stay on steel for a second? Can we stay on steel? I want to talk about steel. So a great example of this
let's go with metal.
is when I say that you guys oppose free trade, what you're really upset about is just inevitable progress. I mean, look, the invention of the automobile decimated the horse-drawn.
This is globalism. That's not, you see, I don't know where he is as far as like his knowledge of this stuff. He comes across as like a well-read guy, but what you're doing with the argument that Elijah's talking about is nationalism, America first. And what Brad Palumbo is talking about is globalism. Yeah, he believes in open borders. He's basically a more gay version of Chase Oliver. Guarantee you, I don't even know his position. I guarantee you he supported Chase. Let me just, I did not mean for it to come. I did not mean for it to come out like that. Politically, I guarantee you that Brad Palumbo, I'm just going to eject from the take. Let's come back to the clip.
Buggy industry.
Sure did.
Destroyed their jobs, destroyed their culture, destroyed their communities, but it was social progress. You cannot put the genie back in the bottle when it comes to trade. Steel is a great example. President Trump tried to in his first term. He put tariffs on steel imports from our allies and from other countries in order to try to increase domestic steel production. And it worked a little bit, right? You had a little bit of an increase in US steel production, but and research on this is overwhelming, actual employment in US manufacturing overall suffered. Multiple times more jobs were destroyed than created because the cost went up in all the other industries that have steel as an input cost. So other manufacturing industries lost jobs, so steel could be protected a little bit more people lost jobs and lost income in all the industries that were.
I'll have to look up to, sometimes that's why I like doing recorded. If this was recorded, I would pause it and then do some research on it. So I'm not going to be able to use numbers and he didn't have any numbers there, but it's just a strange argument to me. He's saying that the tariffs, I think he's doing the tariff thing because a lot of libertarians are against the tariffs because they view them as a tax. And I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but I think he's trying to take that route because of that. It's just a weird argument, though, to me to say, let's be more domestic focused and that's going to destroy other industries. No, it will increase prices. That's no question. The argument is I would rather increase prices than have all these businesses bringing in people on H-1B visas because they're cheap. That's how they try to keep prices down and just flood the zone with cheap labor from China or whatever else.
Rely on steel as an input cost. It's a huge net negative to American society.
And there's a phrase.
But it protected some people who are well connected in favor.
The saying goes, a society grows great when the original frame was when men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit beneath. And so what you're describing is what I call the heroin addiction economy, where it's let's continually gut and destroy the root of labor in this country for short-term gains in other areas. I don't care if a top-level company is going to decrease a little bit if it's going to restore the base and foundation of jobs in this country. So
you don't care about policies that destroy
I don't care about the fruits of the poisonous tree. And saying now that
I do.
Great. And that will lead to the destruction of this country. So we ask ourselves why it is that young people can't find jobs. They're suffering. And it's because there used to be entry-level jobs that could help you afford to live and work in a certain place. But there's even beyond the quantifiable, because you say, like, this is progress. It's progress. Let's talk about the progress. Let's talk about the outsourcing of car manufacturing to Mexico, to Indonesia, and to China. And Donald Trump put a stop to that in his first term. And he said, famously, as Michael Moore pointed out, he went to the executives and said, I will put a 30% tariff on all of your cars and no one will ever buy them again. And what happened? A multi-billion-dollar reinvestment in Michigan. And then Joe Biden got back in. And what happened? They left again. And the jobs were gutted. Michigan.
Did Biden roll back Trump's tariffs?
Some of them.
Most of them he kept in place.
Indeed.
Most of them he kept in place.
And when the policies were reversed, or I should say the administration's enforcement of these policies especially, we saw those investments lost. So Michigan is collapsing. There's so much more to this big picture. First of all, I really think we're getting too much trapped into the graph go up argument, which is the stupidest argument imaginable. It is good that on average, people can buy more sticks of bubble gum and there's no more baseball at the park. There's no more apple pie and there's no more Christmas. That's insane.
That's such a caricature of economic progress.
But the GDP
people
issue
who, sorry, for 1 second, to the people who have
this is a great discussion. Let's continue on.
Struggled to afford everything over the last couple of years. And for people on your side of the political spectrum have railed against that and how unaffordable life has been, you are now coming on and championing policies that would make things go up and then dismissing the cost of living going up as, oh, bubblegum more expensive, graph go down. No, actually, for people who don't have, comfortable media jobs, like I think most of us do, it's actually a big deal when things get more expensive. When the price they pay at the store goes up, when the price at Walmart for the clothes they dress their kids. I grew up in Massachusetts and Rhode Island.
And
where
the point,
Greater Boston and then Greater Providence before.
And the principal issue at play is these short-term economic gains are destroying community and culture in this country, and it's resulting in, sure, maybe you can buy a PlayStation at 10 p.m. in a Walmart.
Yep.
But 10 years from now, people are going to be substantially worse off in many ways. Right. We're going to have lazy, gluttonous, dejected Gen Alpha. And we're already seeing this with the generations as you further progress, as it were. There's no unity. Kids don't go outside anymore.
Yeah, Tim's crashing out, and this is one of the better crash outs I've seen from Tim in a while. I know it's easy to romanticize the 1950s, but the cost of housing was significantly lower compared to today. The median home price was equivalent to $71,000 in today's dollars. Housing represented about 22% of a 1950s household budget. You could have a father, typically it was a father back then, going to work and bringing home enough money to have the white picket fence, the house that they were arguing over, which was perfectly fine. The homes we have now are too big, by the way, Brad. We don't need them this big anyway, but they have a home, white picket fence, a dog, and you take 1 or 2 vacations a year. you do overtime in the plan or whatever. There's a take that I always play this. People from the Middle MAGA channel probably have heard this 100 times. I haven't played it in a minute. I'm going to go get it right now. Is there anybody from Middle MAGA that knows which clip I'm going to take when I go down this route? I just have to do it. It's one of the most beautiful clips I've ever heard. It's one of the most beautiful moments for the populist right in the last ever. This clip is one of the best moments from the populist right ever, where it goes right along where I was talking about, well, what's the take? What's the America First take when something happens? Let's go to Steve Bannon. This is Steve Bannon.
Where Steve Bannon,
After George Floyd.
what part of the movie is this where Steve Bannon, the guy who was portrayed as the Grim Reaper on Saturday Night Live, is the one that has the best, most heartfelt, most emotional, most populist takeaway from the George Floyd death?
I mean, let's go to Mr. Floyd and I say this all the time about George Floyd. And I don't want to talk about the crime that's committed.
This is America First, and this is the argument against Brad Palumbo. You talk about culture, and people like Brad Palumbo, the rainbow flag, their flag. This would be, if you really do care about whatever, call it skin colors, minorities, whatever, this would be the take. This is after George Floyd. Listen to what his takeaway is.
Against him. That's a different topic. But I would say, let's look at his life, right? When he died, he had CCP virus, he had COVID-19. He was on fentanyl and opioids, and he didn't have a great job because all the manufacturing jobs shipped overseas. Think of what George Floyd's life would have been if we had had a manufacturing base. He would be a supervisor or a foreman at a factory or a junior management. He'd be opening up his summer home to go fishing up in the lake country in Minnesota, with his second home up there, a little cabin he could share. If he didn't have the opioids that shipped in by the Chinese Communist Party through the cartels in Mexico across open borders, with everybody making money on the way up and the huge profits in that, to poison him and no opportunity for a job. And to top it all off, the Chinese Communist Party virus that the elites and the scientific priesthood has basically helped fund and help do. He had the CCP COVID-19 virus in him. He had the virus in him. He had fentanyl in him. He didn't have access to a great job because all the great manufacturing jobs are shipped off. Look, that's the Greek tragedy to me of George Floyd, is that he was in that position that day. And by the way, let's talk about the fake 20. Well, that's also the CCP. And we know that these foreign entities are putting out this fake money all the time with the opioids to do it. That was what the counterfeit bill was.
That's one of the best takes I've ever heard from MAGA. Ever, without question. Just
Walmart.
Amazing take by Steve Bannon. And, I'm just going to let him have the final word on that discussion.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.